Vlad's eyes darted across the paper as he for the fourth time tried to read through the badly written letter. Understanding it a bit better than the first time, he was now able to discern that it was a request for food, money, and soldiers to be sent away to Skya so that they could repel goblins and build up some new defense system? Personally, Vlad couldn't understand why they would need help against invaders when most of their kingdom, small as it might be, was elevated into the sky. Begrudgingly, Vlad reached into a drawer to his far right and brought out a little green notebook, along with the official counselor's stamp. He didn't want to give away resources to another kingdom, not now, when they'd already spent mountains of gold towards the Pacific Isles, loaned out just about half the military to fend off bandits and monsters in Ignia, Glacia, and Gloomsparrow, not to mention all the resources they'd just given away to help with the growing pirate attacks to the east. Fugelot was a great and powerful kingdom, but they had limits. They'd just gone through a semi-industrial revolution, thanks to all the technology they'd bought in from Gravitas, but it had meant that a lot of people lost their jobs to machines that could do it better. This was especially apparent with the gondola crews. A few years back, people would be trained from a young age to pull the gondolas up and down from different towns and locations across the kingdom. It was seen as prestigious work that paid handsomely and could even lead to your crest awakening, something that would help you greatly in life. But now, the king had brought in machines that did the same work but with less manpower and without anyone getting tired or injured. Because of this, most of the workers were now either on the streets or trying to find work in new professions, something that was apparently going badly as they had spent their entire lives training to pull giant metal containers for miles, not how to handle goods at a shop. The king hadn't even talked to anyone in the council before buying the machines. Not that it would have changed anything, as the king did have 50% of the vote, and Vlad himself would probably have voted with King Malachi. Vlad had always been a big supporter of Gravitas. They had always had the technology way beyond any other nation, and in later years they had started trading said technology for gold, livestock, and goods from other kingdoms. Vlad was fascinated with Gravitas' brilliance and ingenuity, and he was a big supporter of implementing the Gravitasian technology into Fugelot, although he would have liked it if it was more of a gradual incline of technology, so that their society would have time to adjust and prepare before being bombarded with new technology almost 1,000 years beyond anything they'd ever seen. But just like Vlad had come to expect from King Malachi, if he ever did something, he went all the way with lightning speed. Vlad opened the notebook and jotted down a few numbers. The kingdom wasn't in any position to be donating away the amount that was being asked without the people losing their quality of life, which means that he would once again have to get creative and dip into his own funds. It was infuriating for both Vlad and his brother, but it had to be done. 8,000 to buy food and hire mercenaries that can be sent to Skya. Fugelot was already spread thin, and so taking more away from the kingdom was not an option. With an angry motion, Vlad slammed his stamp of approval onto the request for help and added it to the towering list of finished paperwork that the king was supposed to handle, but as usual fell on his and his brother's shoulders instead. With an irritated look, Vlad sulked back into his chair. Looking out the window, he could see the sun starting to rise in the distance. He had worked all night again. Vlad was going to try and leave before midnight, but going through not only his own but also the king's paperwork did tend to take time. The great King Malachi. Sometimes he wished the so-called God of Lightning would just be the god of doing his damn paperwork, or the god of just doing his damn job every once in a while, and not flying off to handle some other crisis halfway across the world. It's not that he didn't like the king. They'd interacted multiple times, and Vlad would even call him a friend, but he absolutely hated what King Malachi had done with Fugelot. Instead of just handling the kingdom itself and taking care of its people like the previous king had done, Malachi had turned towards the world and worked to help all kingdoms, with Fugelot becoming a worldly capital of sorts. This wouldn't be so bad if the king could do more than just instigate. He would make big decisions and then make the counselors deal with the consequences. Although, you couldn't blame Malachi too much. It was impossible to claim that he wasn't a great king. In fact, without him, they would probably be at war with, well, just about everyone. And everyone would be at war with everyone else. The thought of the last century sent shivers down Vlad's spine as he stood up, finally stretching his legs. The king may have his flaws, but it was impossible to deny that his strength was essential to the world that they now lived in. Besides, Vlad said to himself, as he walked towards the picture on the wall, he's not the one I'm really angry with, Vlad said as he stopped before the painting of himself and his brother Slad as children. They had been inseparable as youths. Growing up in an orphanage would do that to you, and as they'd grown up, they'd always had each other's back. Working together first as salesmen, then as business owners, and now lastly as politicians, trying to help the next generation of parentless kids in this kingdom. But the last years had been rough on their relationship. Slad had lost both his daughter and his wife to a monster attack while visiting one of the Bloom cities. The experience had changed Slad, soured him, and even though he would still do his job, it was evident that he was angry at the kingdom for everything that he had sacrificed for it. He would even ignore their weekly meetings, and had decided to take on a more forceful approach towards recruiting new members for their board. Hopefully, he doesn't do anything too dumb, Vlad said out loud to the universe as he walked back to his table and started reading through the next paper in the ever-growing pile of work.